Formula One. It is the biggest motorsport globally, watched by hundreds of millions of fans. But how can this age-old institution survive as the world turns to electric? Welcome, Electroheads. Let's get into it. As the sensational 2021 season comes to a close, there is a proverbial elephant in the room that's getting larger and larger as each year goes by. Sustainability. Across the globe, many governments have pulled their fingers out of their...
Go on. No, say it.
And have set deadlines in the next 2 decades for phasing out the sale of petrol and diesel vehicles. But Formula One has made no such commitments. So where does that leave Formula One and its longevity? F1 has been the pinnacle for developed technology that has trickled down into the cars that we drive on our roads today. This technology transfer between race and road car engineering has made them superstar industry leaders. But now could they be turning into the dinosaurs? Is that a dinosaur?
What's wrong with you?
First big question here that will create a lot of debate, and we love to see it, so get it down in the comments. Just make sure to keep it nice, people. Why don't they just go electric?
What problem? What are you talking about?
You're in the parking lot.
You stay here! You stay here with Stephanie! You take me to him! Take me to the son of a bitch!
Well, it's actually not that simple. Firstly, the fanship for this prestigious ICE engine sport has been built off of deafening engines and high endurance, high speed, intensive racing laps. It's become a visceral experience. Take away the engine and I can guarantee you the following would drop catastrophically overnight.
It would kill everyone on Earth.
Secondly, the big FIA and F1 bosses and their partner global brands and teams have invested hundreds of millions of pounds on running the sport. They're not gonna let all those years of coveted progress in history be thrown down the can. Thirdly, kind of a big one, F1 isn't actually allowed to go electric. Formula E has an exclusivity deal for electric power for an FIA series until 2039. So what do? How do you keep F1 exciting but also in line with the times? F1 rules and regs have morphed and changed over its lifetime, and unlike in the 90s, the components aren't the screaming V10 and V12 engines that many veteran fans will have fallen in love with. But actually, since 2009, these engines have already been hybrid. That's right, so they've been using a KERS system, kinetic energy recovery system, that basically means that at the push of a button, a DC motor gives this electric boost per lap for this car, which is obviously great in the race. But then in 2014, F1 introduced a smaller capacity 1.6 litre V6 turbo hybrid engine, which became a way more complicated system with the introduction of ERS. But the fact that they were hybrids weren't particularly well marketed until, coincidentally, COP26, when a whole new F1 engine rebrand was launched to promote their turbo hybrid power with blue and green graphics to flaunt their goals for 100% sustainability. But F1 hasn't done it just for the PR stunt. There's a lot to be said for going hybrid. On the track, it gives you more overtaking capabilities, but the reality is it's a massive way of communicating to their audience that even a huge platform like F1 needs to go green. These are the most efficient power units in the history of the FIA series. In fact, the most efficient petrol engines in the history of petrol engines. They have 50% thermal efficiency, which means that 50% of fuel burned is turned into usable energy to power the car forward. Currently, your average road car is around 20 to 30%, so they're not incredibly wasteful in comparison. Not exactly what anybody wants to be hearing right now with the whole fuel pricing going on right now.
I'm not listening.
No, the lower revving hybrids don't sound as good as the old dirty V10s. People want the loudest, most antisocial race cars to make the sport a spectacle.
Loud noises!
But clean electric Formula E can't get close to that oral stimulation, which gets, I can't say.
Oral stimulation, you sure it's oral?
Despite all of this, F1 has officially announced the plan for the new power unit regulations in 2025 to stay with hybrid. It's going to be difficult to make these engines any more efficient, so the only way that F1 can burn less is to use synthetic fuel. Current Formula One rules already require petrol to contain at least 10% biofuel, and that proportion is likely to increase. From 2025, sustainable fuels in F1 are going to be compulsory. F1 is developing a new fuel for its next gen of engines, that they claim will be 100% sustainable to keep the sport alive. They also envision the fuel being used on a global scale to power internal combustion engine road cars. However, the process of making synthetic fuel requires a huge amount of energy, so F1 would have to ensure that energy is coming from renewable sources, and this all needs to happen in the next 3 years. But will the electrification aspect play a bigger role in years to come? Well, Formula One boss Ross Brawn thinks that hydrogen could be the way to go. To continue to incorporate the speed, acceleration, and longevity of the race, hydrogen could deliver all of that. The challenge that we have, as Brawn states, is to make sure it is safe and can produce the amount of power that's required to be able to do the lap times that we do, and hydrogen is very much on the table.
And that's why I love physics.
Much more development and innovation is needed in this area, but isn't that what F1 is all about? It's the perfect testing ground to come up with better, forward-thinking solutions. This is second nature to all these guys and gals. So for now, it seems that the onus on keeping this sport alive is by finding alternative carbon neutral solutions. But what about being more sustainable as a whole? Well, multiple world champs Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel have both publicly expressed their concerns about the climate impact, and the FIA have responded. Like I said, F1 has launched a massive sustainability push by aiming for every race to be entirely sustainable by 2025, i.e. leave no trace, and to be carbon neutral by 2030. This will require ultra-efficient low and zero carbon logistics and travel, 100% renewable powered offices, facilities and factories. But there's a lot to unpack here. F1 estimates that 0.7% of the sport's emissions are from the race cars themselves, while almost half comes from the moving of equipment and personnel to the races, of which there were a record 23 planned this season. DHL, a major sponsor for F1, revealed that for the 2021 season to happen, it had to cover 74,600 miles, or 120,000 kilometers, to deliver cars, teams, fuel and tyres, as well as broadcast and hospitality equipment. This is the equivalent of 3 trips around the globe.
What a concept.
F1 revealed in a sustainability report that 45% of the 2018 season CO2 emissions, roughly 256,551 tons, came from the transportation of Formula One teams and all of their equipment. To put this into perspective, that's equivalent to powering roughly 30,000 homes in the UK over the same time period. Bearing in mind, this doesn't account for the impact of millions of traveling fans. Add that into the mix and the total carbon footprint of F1 rockets up to approximately 1.9 million tons produced annually. So, in terms of global carbon impact, there's still a lot to be cut down on. But is the switch to electric a threat to Formula One? Well, for you F1 fans out there, honestly, I don't think so. F1 wants to be apolitical and they want to keep doing what they're doing, and so do the millions of fans across the globe. Driving an electric car is inherently very different to an ICE. Battery conservation is a completely different kind of sport, and unless there was some kind of huge uproar from the public, that isn't going to change. Until 2039 at least. F1 will continue to adapt and preserve the high-octane excitement that surrounds it, and hydrogen could guarantee their future. Let's face it, F1 teams are full of lots of very bright people. They revolutionize motorsport endlessly, and I am incredibly confident that they can do it again. What do you think? Make sure to drop a comment down below and give this video a like if you enjoyed it. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, make sure you do that and hit the notification bell. Switch it on so you don't miss out on any of our latest videos. Thanks so much for watching.